All right. How is it you unlock your mind? How is it that you become uninhibited, no longer feeling fear, doubt, dread, all of the seven deadly sin associated type of feelings? Let me tell you, there is a way, there is a narrow way to be able to unlock, to be able to actually perform at your fullest potential, where you no longer have that emotional angst that just holds you back. This is something that has been known for thousands of years, and it is scientifically proven and very explainable. You have probably never heard of these ideas, and I can prove them to you. So listen up. You, I, are these creatures who are conscious. We have the ability, unlike any other animal or any other creature on this planet, to be aware of our surroundings, to have an effect on those surroundings, and to be able to produce a result. So, how is this done, and what does it matter? We are aware of ourselves. We are aware of other things. Very few creatures are aware of themselves. This is key. If you take a lot of animals and put them in front of a mirror and you try to show them their reflection, they can't recognize that it's them. Like a cat in front of a mirror will start to attack the cat that it sees in the mirror. If you take a dog and you try to, show its reflection to itself, it doesn't understand what it is. There's a couple of animals, kind of like dolphins or certain primates, that after a little while they catch on that it's something else that's not just another animal. Now, we do this, obviously. You look in the mirror and you see yourself, and you can tell. But there's something more to us humans. We don't just understand about us, our own individual selves. We can understand society. We can understand all of the group, and we're aware that there are groups within groups, and that there are, you know, not just present groups, but past groups and future groups. And it makes us take into consideration our actions and how they affect each of those things. And it also creates something that is very unique to humans. We have these hyper hierarchy systems, whereas you can have animals that they have their kind of little hierarchies. You can have the alpha wolf, you can have, chickens in their pecking orders, things like this. Well, we don't just look at our immediate group and think about, well, this guy, he's the richest, so he's at the top, or this guy's the most popular, or this girl's the prettiest, da 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 da. We also compare ourselves in history to past groups, and we also compare our groups to other current groups. And this is more unique in that it gives more depth and understanding to the things that we need to do. Okay, this awareness is really what it is a key feature to humans. The more aware that we are, the more powerful we become. Okay. Now, at the same time, as we become more aware, I think we become aware of our position. All right. And with social media, this has become very obvious lately, where you are more aware now of all of the humans on earth than we have ever been. There is this thing where we are now comparing ourselves in our groups to everyone on the entire planet, whereas before that never really happened. There was no some random person over in Dubai post a picture with a Bugatti, and then we're over here in our country and drawing some type of comparison between us and them. This is a giant structure of hierarchy where it's the entire human race all at once. Our brains have a very difficult time placing our position amongst everybody with that scale. So here's what happens. You are only really meant to see like 200-300 people in your lifetime and know those people. Your brain can only really keep up with that many relationships, that many positions, and how they interrelate to each other. So as populations increase and scale happens, you end up unable to figure out, who am I? What am I? Your identity is too blurred and obscured. And it, by default, will cause you to put yourself at the bottom. You will think everyone online has a Ferrari. Everyone online is rich and having a great life. Everyone is doing amazing except for me. Well, you're having a problem with, you're having a camouflage effect. This is the thing. When you have any type of activity or group of people that are normal, you will tend to not notice them because they just blend in with the mass of other people that are normal. It's hard to quantify that huge mass as well. So you just start comparing to the bigger contrasting things that are the more successful people or whatever, the more, clean, pretty, and whatever you want to call them types. This puts your mind in a repressed state where you think that you are not worthy, or that you are less than, or that you are not someone who deserves something, because in history past, it was, you were in a pecking order, and the tribal leader got what he got because he was the boss. And then you, as the whatever, low life, the little Indian, or the beta, whatever you want to call yourself, would end up only deserving the scraps. You don't get any mating rights. You don't get any, food or resources. You don't get preferential treatment, et cetera, et cetera. This is very clear that this is deeply ingrained in humans. Very clear. They did studies where they took humans and they would dress them up in various different clothing. Some people would be in rich people clothing. Some people would be in poor people clothing. And then they would take them out into public and they would have them pretend to go unconscious, to faint, to fall down, and to fall on the ground. Well, when they had people in poor person clothes or they looked homeless, people would see this happen, but they would just walk by. They would just ignore those humans. And then maybe one person every now and then, the Good Samaritan, would stop and try to help them. And they did this progressively with nicer clothes. And when they got to people who were in these tailored luxury suits, nice dresses, things like that, and they would pass out and fall down, almost everybody in a crowd would immediately go help that person. Very strange, huh? Probably because they had perceived that individual as higher status. And within a tribe, you would really want to help out the person who is at the top of the tribe because you could get favoritism and you would be able to get something out of it. Now, this is where it's going to get really interesting, because I am going to draw some conclusions that this has been well understood, and that what you have to do is you have to get your mindset, because you have to get your mindset up to the top of the hierarchy, because it doesn't matter. You can be mentally at the top of the hierarchy and you don't actually have to be at the top. If that were the case in like a literal sense, you'd have to be some type of billionaire, um, type of superhuman performer who had their whole life figured out, and you'd have to be competing with Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or some other ultra, top tier human. and there can only be one, right? There can only be one person at the top of a hierarchy. And it makes no sense to have all of humanity ranking themselves, limiting their potential because only one person can occupy that spot in the whole world. No, this mental system that we have was designed for small tribes. And we have to figure out how to be able to unlock our free association, our confidence, our ability to think through different tasks and be able to actually perform well. Because we need many leaders. We need many people who are living at their full potential and creativity to keep pushing us forward. And that can't happen when humans are putting themselves in a ranked hierarchy and limiting themselves. So here was the solution, and this is how we got out of that about 2,000 years ago. Something happened, and it was sets of ideas that allowed us to be able to move up. And that was, we took the hierarchy, right? And we got rid of it so that you are no longer able to put yourself inside of a scale to be able to measure against others. And how did we do that? You have to remove this whole idea that this world is all that there is. You have to be able to actually start thinking there is maybe an afterlife. Not only is there an afterlife where we go on forever, but that our position in this universe of who we are, our identity, is something much greater than just humans. Okay? We have to look at the Bible. Okay? Let's go to John chapter 15, verse, let's start with 15. Okay. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I have learned from my Father, I have made known to you. Now, this is Jesus talking to the disciples, and he is explaining what the identity of the followers of Christ are. Okay. There's this concept. Okay. This is very, very, very important. Listen carefully. Okay. I'm going to let you just take this as all metaphor if you like, and just to be able to kind of think of this as analogous to the subconscious and or about maybe kind of like a Jungian psychology, something like that. Okay. But there's also a lot of literal truth in it as well. So if you try to live in the world of man, store up your treasures here on earth, you're going to compare yourself to other people on this earth. And you're going to have this big, at the end of the game, tally up your scores type of thing. And you all think that you're, winning or not winning or whatever. I came in the middle of the pack, blah, blah, blah. But it's gonna hamper your ability. It's gonna fill your mind with anxiety, with doubt, with thinking, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? What do I need to do to be better? All these things. Instead of just performing and letting your natural innate creativity and ability to perform pour out. You're in a mental shackle. You have this veil over your eyes from ego, and you will have a worse life for it. Okay. But here is the thing. Christ talked about many times over that there was a master and a servant. Okay. The idea was over and over again that the master would give a task to the servants and they were to do it. And when they did well at the task, they would get promoted. And what Jesus is talking about here in John, he's talking about the vine. He's talking about how if we produce fruit, then we will remain in the vine forever. The concept is, if you know God's mission, the universe's mission, the creator of the universe's mission. You understand the task, what we are here for. And he says it quite clearly in this same book, that it is the spirit of truth is what it is that is God's mission. I'll look it up here just a second. I'll probably post it in the video. But truth being the primary aim of God himself. God is creating a universe. He created it, and it is still in the process of being created. New things are coming into existence, right? Old things that were initially created are being combined together to make something new. This process is to let God explore himself and his potential, his ability, his expression. And we ourselves, when we are a part of that same mission, we no longer are just his creation or his servants, but we have come to know the master's business. And because of that, we are now called friends, not just slaves. This is very powerful subconsciously, because you just went from being a human on earth amongst other humans who are all comparing themselves to when you take on God's business, you go from a hierarchy here on earth to all the way up here to being a peer with God. That is drastic. You're not even inside the hierarchy anymore. You're completely, it's like non existent. It doesn't matter. And you go to being something like an equal with God as long as you stay on task. Here's another parable that Christ talks about to really showcase this idea. There was a master who had 3 servants, and he said to them, I will be leaving for a time, and I am going to give you my money for you to invest while I am gone. And you are to get a return so that when I come back, you can give it to me. So he leaves for a time, and upon his return, he goes to the first servant. And he says, Servant, what have you done with my money? Have you made a return? And he says, Yes, my master, I have. I have doubled the amount of money that you have given to me. And he says, Well done, good and faithful servant. More will be given to you, and your position will be increased. The second, he says, Servant, what have you done with the money that I have given to you? He says, My Lord, I have 1/10 increased your money, and I have returned it to you. Good job. Your position will be increased as well. But then the last, my last servant, what have you done with my money? Lord, I was afraid to lose your money. So I instead took it and I buried it in the ground. And I did this and I didn't lose anything. And I have returned here to you your money. The master of the house says, You wicked and lazy servant. It would have been better if you would have taken that and at least put it in the bank to get a return. But instead, you have squandered it. For you, your punishment is hellfire. That is intense. What is going on? Why did this guy just get thrown into hell for just not doing anything? He was not about his master's business. He was not a part of the mission, and he got thrown down into the lower levels of the hierarchy. Why? Because he is not up here with the master, right? These other people, who here has a business? I have a business, okay? I understand this very well. If you have a worker who shows up and they start out, you see their potential, they're doing good, and they are somebody who, you know, gets things done. You're very impressed by them. They're doing better and better all the time. And then one day you show up and they're there early and you're like, what are you doing here early today? And they say, well, last night we got behind on this one particular task. And I knew that today we are going to have to hustle a little bit because we have this new project starting. So I came in early to finish up from last night. That way, that then we could still stay on schedule to be able to continue the rest of our work. At that point, if you're an owner of a company, you will be so happy to have that person there with you. That person will be worth their weight in gold because they are not just an employee, they're taking ownership. And that's the key word. They're taking ownership, right? And at that point, you're going to start thinking like, this person's awesome. We're going to promote him. We're going to give them a raise. If they keep doing this type of thing, I don't have to micromanage them. I don't have to oversee them. I can just trust them. And then it continues on, and then you go later, and let's say that you leave for a while, like the parable of the master. You come back, and then you show up to the office, and there's a whole addition built onto the building. And you walk in, you're like, what on earth is going on here? Who built this addition onto our building? And then you go back to your main guy who's there and you go, hey, what is this? And he goes, well, while you're gone, we had a new business opportunity show up and we didn't have, enough space in here because I had to hire more people. So I had this addition built on so that we had more office. And now we're actually doing more work and we've increased revenue by X amount of percent. Would you be mad at that guy? Would you be like, well, what were you thinking? You could just spend my money like that without my decision. Or would you be like, wait a second, how much money did you say you started making us more here? You would be shocked, but you would be absolutely ecstatic. You've doubled my revenue. I'm not going to complain about any of this. This is awesome. It looks great. That's the same thing. When you are able to start understanding the mission of God and what He is doing, and you take that on as a personal responsibility in alignment with God, everything unlocks. Your mind unlocks. You're able to focus. You're able to create. You're tapping into that same energy that God has. And guess what? You're going to get the motherfucking business MasterCard, and everything is going to be allowed to you. Do you think God has a small bank account, or does He have everything? Think about that. And you're considered at that point with your boss or with your master, whoever, they're not looking at you as underlings. They're looking at you as someone who shows up, is there on the same mission. As long as you stay focused and tapped in, you don't falter, they're going to treat you not as some type of servant, a slave, or whatever. They're going to be happy to see you. They're going to consider you a friend because you are about their business. You'll get invited on the vacations during the summer with the family. Hey, go grab your wife and just come on and join us on the boat with my wife. And we're going to go have fun this weekend. It's been a hard work week. And you want to go to lunch together. That's what's going to happen. I'm breaking this down into analogy, metaphor, whatever. But the real point is, right? How do you get out of the earthly hierarchy and into where you're not rating yourself, 1 out of 10, but you're in a completely different rating system? The answer is you no longer compare yourselves to humans, but you compare yourself to God, right? Because if you're on the mission of men, which is competing in the hierarchy, guess what? You're going to have to find yourself in a position of it. But if you are not competing, you're not competing with God. You are working with God in the mission that is entirely expansive forever and goes out endlessly. in building out the universe, seeking truth, right? What is the business of God? Expanding consciousness. If you're in the business of expanding consciousness, then you're a peer of God. You two, that's that personal relationship, a co-heir to a throne that the Bible talks about. And how Jesus claims that, you know, the way to the Father is through me, through belief in Christ, and Christ is a representation of the Spirit of truth. Okay? This is how you unlock. Now, does this make sense to any of you? Please leave me a comment. I want to hear from you, what you have to say. I have noticed it personally. When I am on the path of truth and increasing consciousness, I am so much more creative. I am so much more capable, and my anxiety levels drop dramatically. And guess what? You also don't care about this life as much anymore either. You care about what goes on eternally. Things that are very godly would be like science, study, building new things that create structure, infrastructure, things that furnish the ability for more consciousness to exist, more awareness, right? This is very powerful. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this video, like, subscribe, share it with a friend even. But other than that, have a good one. Bye.